And we're coming to you live from the Real Fuller Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Monday morning. We've got two beautiful helmets sitting in front of us. And it's the two teams in Super Bowl 58. And it is a rematch of the right before the pandemic Super Bowl, the 2019 season into early 2020 between the 49ers and the Chiefs. And, man, did we get there in a really crazy way yesterday. The turnovers by the Baltimore Ravens in the end zone. Two killer turnovers. And, of course, the great play by Patrick Mahomes and the great coaching of Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and that Chiefs defense. Hats off as they get back to another Super Bowl. And the poor Detroit Lions. Sometimes when you're a loser, you're just a loser. And it's tough to get that off you. No matter how hard you scrub, no matter how many showers you take, you're still a loser. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. I'm doing all right, and it's a wild scene down in Baltimore yesterday. I felt bad for Lamar Jackson after the game because I know he's probably going to get a lot of criticism and everything else. But if Zay Flowers doesn't fumble the ball, the momentum right there in the second half is getting ready to flip. I mean, it is getting ready to flip, and you could feel it. And then, of course, Lamar not being aware of situational football late in the fourth quarter, instead of forcing a ball down the middle, he either could have taken off and run with it, which is what he was trying to do yesterday, or, he could have thrown it away, play another down, and then kick a field goal at that point, and then come back, play defense, get the ball back, and then have a chance to go, 4 downs into the end zone and try to get a touchdown and tie the game. But I will say that I felt bad for Zay Flowers. And, and a lot of this, too, for the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, they brought upon themselves a stupid penalties at the end of the first half that ended up giving Kansas City a field goal. Butker hits that long field goal. Prior to that, there was this phantom holding call on Trey Smith, back-to-back holding calls for that matter, and it kept Rashee Rice out of the end zone. That was a touchdown as far as I was concerned. The ball was out of Patrick Mahomes' hands in less than a second. But it was the defense and Steve Spagnuolo, and Giant fans know this. They know it. They've seen it before. They've seen it twice. He took down an undefeated Patriots team as the Giants defensive coordinator. And his defense yesterday was really amazing because they were rushing either 5 or 6. And Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, much celebrated offensive coordinator, by the way, and who has an MVP quarterback, had no answers for the blitz. Or maybe he had answers for the blitz, and Lamar didn't see them or wasn't reacting fast enough. I'm not sure. Maybe that's where the criticism comes in for Lamar, but at the end of the day, it was it was about as hard hitting as you would imagine. I mean, that Baltimore and Kansas City defense, they get after your ass, and we're standing down there on the sideline at the end of the first half and then towards the end of the game. I mean, the intensity, you could feel it standing there. And I was sitting there saying to J.J. Watt, this is what you really miss, isn't it? And he goes, yeah. He goes, man, oh my God, because he had never been to an AFC Championship game as a player. And then to feel it and to be there and to be on the sideline and to be a witness to it, it was a really, really physical game. And, quite frankly, just the better quarterback, the better coach, and the more stable football team won the game.
Yeah, and I said I was never going to bet against Patrick Mahomes again after last year's AFC Championship game, and then this year with the Bills, I lost both of those. Well, I did it again. I wasn't planning on it, and then I sat there and I saw the Ravens, and I saw the look on Roquan Smith's face, and then I just saw John Harbaugh running out, and I said, this is it. This is their time. They're going to do it. It's going to be over. It's going to be the Ravens beating the Chiefs, and then, of course, it was not. And this was an oversimplification, but this is just the classic, a team that knows how to win and a team who hasn't figured it out yet. Now, I know John Harbaugh figured it out with Joe Flacco many years ago, but with Lamar Jackson in these situations, they just haven't figured it out yet. They've had different offensive coordinators. They've had different defensive coordinators. And you've got the best player in the game right now, the undisputed king of the NFL, that is impossible to topple. He is impossible to topple. It's happened a couple of times. Tom Brady did it. Joe Burrow did it in a championship game. But outside of that,
in his building, by the way.
Right. He owns everybody, Patrick Mahomes.
And he finally did something that he hadn't done before, and that's win an AFC championship game on the road in a very tough environment. I know it was loud down there in Baltimore. I think it's worse, and it's 10 times worse in Arrowhead for the visiting team. at least the team, the games that I've been around. And I think it's tougher up in Buffalo. I think, those are really, really loud. And I'm not saying the fans are not passionate. They certainly are. I mean, the amount of purple and black and purple in that stadium, I mean, I think there was maybe 1% Chiefs fans. I mean, it was all Ravens, and it was loud. But I don't necessarily know that it was as loud as these other places. And, it's just, Patrick Mahomes is like a surgeon. And he very rarely gets intimidated or falls back on his heels. Now, they didn't have a great second half offensively. We felt like they were trying to just run the game out. And at least they were still trying to run the ball, where Baltimore basically abandoned the run altogether. And you're playing against a Chiefs defense that doesn't stop the run very well. But I think that they felt like that with the Chiefs playing as aggressively as they were and having 5 and 6 guys up at the line of scrimmage almost the entire day, that they couldn't get through that. But, Lamar gets through that. He gets through it on a 4th down. And I think young Lamar probably scores there. You can see that he has slowed down significantly as he has gotten older, which is fine. That happens to all of us. But when he broke through there, I'm like, man, 3 years ago, Lamar scored a touchdown there.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought he was gone. I was surprised that he wasn't. And that throw that he had where, you're essentially throwing into triple coverage. And he gets asked after the game by a reporter, and the reporter asked, do you think you were trying to do too much there because of the frustration that you had offensively? And Lamar said, no, I'm not trying to do too much. I'm trying to win the game. And then he goes to the reporter, why, did you think I was trying to do too much? And basically, the reason why I bring that up is he's probably thinking in his head, like, why in the hell did I do that?
Well, you
like,
saw him come over and slam the helmet down.
I know, and then on the sideline, he's looking up to the sky, and he's just like, why? I mean, and he is someone who was, this year, as you said many times, a different player. He had gotten over stupid crap like this. There are 3 Chiefs there. He said he was also hoping there was going to be a PI and looking for a PI. I mean, this is Zach Wilson doesn't make that throw. You know what I'm saying? There's 3 Chiefs around that. This is a critical moment.
Wow.
4th quarter, 6 minutes to go with your entire season and legacy on the line. That is one of the worst decisions that he has made in his career.
Yeah.
And at the worst time ever.
Yeah, it is whether they were on like the 25-yard line, I think, of the Chiefs. So, and it was a 2nd down play. So if he just throws the ball away, they got a 3rd and 10, and then you never know what's going to happen. And
still could have kicked the field goal. He had 3 timeouts left,
exactly.
1-score game.
North of the 2-minute warning, the whole thing.
Oh my God.
So that was a really bad, poor decision for him, and he will not sleep because he'll be thinking about that for at least the next 2 weeks. There's nothing more miserable than doing something that you can't explain why you did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like one of my buddies that I played with texted me right as that play happened. He goes, why is the tight end? I think it was Isaiah Likely who was trying to hit. I'm not sure who he was trying to hit. Why does he put his hand up like he's open? I said, because, they're selfish. They all want the ball thrown to them.
Right.
And I'm talking about all wide receivers and all tight ends, for the most part. And I do have to say that Travis Kelce had one of probably his best game ever. I mean, a couple of these catches he made yesterday were unbelievable. And 2 or 3 of the plays that Patrick Mahomes pulled off to get him the football were just incredible plays by Patrick that very few players will make or have the guts to make. And I just, they didn't play great in the second half. They played it really close to the vest. But again, another game where they don't turn the ball over. So that's 4 straight games going back to last year's Super Bowl against the Eagles where they haven't turned the ball over and the other team has imploded.
Yeah, and I know that it's not just one player who does it, and we've had these conversations in sports talk forever about guys getting credit and who deserves the most credit. But I tell you, there are 2 people who are now in the elite, legendary, immortal status because Patrick Mahomes came along. And that is Andy Reid and Travis Kelce. Now, they're great in their own right, but Patrick Mahomes made those guys quite possibly, we're talking about the most productive tight end in history. And now Andy Reid, who's in that conversation, who wins another Super Bowl as a top 3 or 4 coach in the history of the game. Now, don't get me wrong, because this is like a Coach Cowher thing. I could see him like staring at me with the chin.
Yes.
What do you mean, Andy Reid? Like, no. Chill. He is a great coach. He obviously did in Philadelphia. What I'm saying is Patrick Mahomes is so great that he has elevated great to immortal.
Yes.
He is
All right.
lifted those guys into a stratosphere they never would have gotten there on their own.
Yeah, I don't think Coach Cowher would react that way. And the reason I say that is because, he was a great coach in his own right. He's iconic. And, he really took off when he got Ben Roethlisberger. Before, look at the guys that played for him before that. I mean, he still won with those guys, but he wasn't going to be able to get over the hump until he got that quarterback.
Yeah.
He'd be able to get him over the hump, and I think that he would be very appreciative of what you just said about Patrick Mahomes and how great he is. Because when you watch him in person and you're standing there and you see the pass rush come and you see his head's always down the field and he has this knack of understanding where it's coming from, and he's able to deliver the ball accurate. I thought his accuracy in the first half yesterday was ridiculous. That it wasn't even a back shoulder throw; it was a back hip throw to Travis Kelce against Keith Hamilton. That unbelievable safety that the Ravens have. I mean, nobody could defend that. Nobody, and very few people can catch that. But that is what they practice, and they in the biggest games they come through in a way that very few groups have ever come through. So. I think you're right about elevating everybody else because that quarterback is so great, so calm, so poised. But I also know that Steve Spagnuolo's defense deserves a lot of credit.
And this is the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has had. I mean, this might be the least amount of weapons that he's had overall, and he's had to play better than he's ever had to play. And up until yesterday, Travis Kelce didn't look like the same player he was a couple years ago. But I think that the defense changes that. It's just more of a complete team now. You don't have to worry about it. You know that they're going to show up every single week, and they shut down with some really costly turnovers, but shut down a Ravens offense who had smacked around a lot of really good teams this year.
But how about the bad penalties, though? I
mean,
you had bad penalties on Kyle Van Noy. You had bad penalties on Patrick Queen. You had a bad penalty on Zay Flowers. You had ultimately the fumble by Zay Flowers right before he is getting ready to go into the end zone. I felt bad for that kid because he's really, and then he hurts his hand on the sideline. Mm-hmm. That's the bad emotion. That's the tough guy. We're going to get your face emotion that ends up biting you in the ass. You have to be surgical with your emotion. And I could say the same thing about San Francisco and Detroit yesterday because there was a 4th and 2, and Dan Campbell went for it like he's always done, and Reynolds drops the ball, and it wasn't a great throw by Jared Goff.
You're talking about the first one now.
Yeah, the first one. The second one hit him right in the chest, and that was a 3rd down call, I think.
Yeah, and the second 4th down, that they went for, that was the one where Jared Goff gets chased out of the pocket. This is the one where they could have kicked the field goal, obviously, to tie the game. Yeah. He gets chased out of the pocket, throws the ball. It just had no shot. But so that one I didn't have as much of an issue with as the first one. I like the aggressiveness in the second one.
But everybody assumes that you're going to make it, G, and nobody takes into account the emotion of the game and where the game is now. Detroit was up, and they were up big. They were up 17 when they went for it on 4th and 2. And I think
they were up 14.
14, yeah, because they kicked the field goal coming out, right.
So that's why that one, to me, was the one that they should have tried the field goal. If you miss it, you miss it. But if you kick it, you're back up 3 scores. So then after stopping the Niners and keeping them out of the end zone and making them kick a field goal to get it to 14, and now you're driving down the field again, you're back in control of the game. And then you kick that field goal, it's back to 3 scores, and the Niners we can't even get closer.
Well, we're also assuming he's going to make the field goal. I don't know whether or not he trusts him. But if
he misses it, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? But
it's not back on the coach then. It's back on the player.
Exactly, because that is a field goal you have to make in that situation. And then the other one that everybody was saying you got to kick to tie, I didn't mind that one. That was the one where I felt like, okay, as you mentioned, Dan Campbell's done it all year long. Be aggressive. You're on the road. You want to get the momentum back. I didn't have as much of a problem with the going for it on the second one. It was that first one where I'm like, man, go back up 3 scores.
Yeah, and that ball, it was a tough throw by Jared Goff, and Reynolds would have been a tough catch. That would have been a Kelce catch. Mm-hmm. That Travis had for Patrick in his game. But I don't know. It's like so last week against the Buccaneers, the Detroit Lions almost gave the Buccaneers a chance to come back at the end of the game. And they mismanaged the clock at the end of the game. And then you remember Todd Bowles was the one who said, the game's over anyway.
Yeah.
It's never over. You make every snap count, and they didn't do it. And what's his name? Dan Campbell basically said after last week's game, we didn't end the game the right way, and, that's as much as our fault as it is them not going for it, whatever he said. But he took ownership of it. And I said, when you're at this level, you make it to the playoffs, those decisions that those coaches make, man, they have a lasting effect one way or the other. So kicking the field goal and getting back up to 3 scores and getting back up to 17 points is the right play there. It's just a simple, conservative play. You don't make it, what happens? All of a sudden, momentum is flipped, and they never got it back. And when they finally did get back into field goal range, what did he do again? He went for it on 4th down and then gave the momentum back to the 49ers again.
Yeah, and I did the being on the road, letting the game slipped out of your hands. You're now trailing in the game. As I'm watching it and he went for it, I was like, that's the play. That is the Lions. If they're going to do it, they're going to win. It's that first one that made no sense to me at all. And so we're obviously questioning the Dan Campbell decision that won in the 4th quarter, and everybody's going to be talking about him. But that first one, if the kicker misses the field goal to go up 17, nobody is saying that Dan Campbell should have gone for it in that situation. They all would have said, man, they missed that field goal to go up 3 scores.
Except for analytics, which is really, you have to take into account, I always say this, and analytics is fine. And, going for it, not going for it, all of that is fine. But you're paying a head coach not to be a robot on the sideline. You're paying the head coach to play the game that they're playing in the midst of right now, and how is the game being played, what's going on. There's so many different variables that really determine your decision-making. And I'm sick and tired of hearing that, Dan Campbell's done this all year long. You're in the NFC Championship game. You got a 17-point lead that's now a 14-point lead. You can get it back up to 17, assuming your kicker's going to make it. There's nothing wrong in these games with field goals, especially when they're going to be tightly contested. It's usually going to come down to a field goal somewhere along the line. And, if Lamar Jackson had that mindset, I think that the Ravens would have ended up kicking a field goal there if they don't score a touchdown. And then there would have been a hell of a lot more time left, timeouts left, north of the 2-minute warning. And then they would have known they would have been in 4-down territory where they would have had to score a touchdown to tie the game against the Chiefs. So decision-makings, late-game decisions, coaches' decisions, players' decisions, stupid penalties, turnovers, all of those things rear their ugly heads for the losing teams.
Yeah, and just quickly, because we'll talk about the Super Bowl for 2 weeks, but if this Niners defense doesn't figure itself out, they are not winning this football game. And they got their asses handed to them earlier in the game, and obviously they figured it out, got some more pressure on Jared Goff and the Lions. The defensive line was active, but they have been less than impressive. That unit, a unit that was supposed to buoy them all the way to the Lombardi Trophy, which still may, but that is one thing. If there's one glaring thing of these two teams going into this game, it's certainly not Brock Purdy, because he played his ass off and did things yesterday that championship quarterbacks do. Finding the places where you should run, getting out of the pocket, looking down the field, like all these things that people say he can't do because he's a system quarterback. My ass, he did it yesterday.
That's 2 weeks in a row, by the way.
Yes, right. In late in games, making all the plays. It's that defense that becomes holy hell.
Steve Wilkes has got to figure. I figure if they lose yesterday and they get torn up the way they were going to get torn up, and they gave up 442 yards, if Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't fumble, that's another thing that the Lions did that helped the 49ers. I would sit here and tell you that, it may be time to be looking for a new defense coordinator, because that's not the 49er defense. That defense that we saw yesterday, they could have gotten run on for like 400 yards yesterday.
They were on pace, too.
I was like, wow. And then all of a sudden, second half, they make a couple plays, get Nick Bosa involved, and a couple drop passes. The Reynolds pass over the middle on 3rd down, that was a bad one, because that hit him right in the 8. That hit him right in the top of the 8, in the chest. And that there's no excuse for dropping that ball, I can tell you that. And that's not the coach's fault. That's the player's fault.
All right, Boomer and Gio just getting started on this Monday morning. Super Bowl 58 set. Niners and Chiefs in Las Vegas. Less than a week from now, we leave for Las Vegas. We'll be doing a show 1 week from right now at the Wynn. It's crazy that we are already here. Boomer's got something for you. We'll bring in Jerry Recco right after that. Coming right back.